just don't think I'm gonna make this work, you guys. I don't think we have it in us to make this work. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. I'm very excited about this video. Holley Performance has sent us over this Baer 6T 13.5-inch brake set for the F-150 Tremor. Now this particular set right here only accommodates the front of the truck, the front braking system of the truck, but they've also sent us over some rear rotors and brake pads from Baer to accommodate the whole setup. So the whole truck is getting a brand new brake setup. I'm very excited for this one. Now this kit isn't Tremor specific. They make a variety of caliper colors to best match your build or the setup you're currently running. We went the Hugger Orange on this truck, obviously to complement the rest of the orange that's already on the F-150 Tremor from factory. And I'm very excited to see how this is gonna look through the brand new fuel wheels we got on the truck. Now, if you've ever done brakes before, you know it's a fairly easy process, but it also depends on whether your old parts are seized on or not. So this could either be a 2-hour job or it could be a 4-hour job. I don't think we'll be fighting with much today as it is a fairly new truck. So this should be a very easy install. Let's get right into it, you guys. I'm gonna jack up the truck, we'll take off the wheels, and then we'll get started. All right, so we got our wheel all off, and I'm by no means a mechanic. This isn't my day job. So some of you might be watching this and think I do things in the wrong order, and perhaps I do. Perhaps things I do are a little bit more inefficient, but we'll get through it, right? That's all part of the process, part of learning. So if you guys have any tips, or you guys see me doing anything wrong, feel free to correct me for more efficient and doing it right the next time. But I always welcome those sort of tips. Even like when I did my leveling kit, when I did my initial leveling kit, so there was a lot of guys saying I did things right, there's a lot of guys saying I did things wrong, and it's all a learning process, and I think everyone can gain on that experience. So I really encourage you guys to comment. It goes a long way, not only for my channel, but also the community as well, and it really helps me learn. So let's get right into it, guys. I've yabbered on enough, and we're gonna start by taking off these bolts in the back here on the caliper. And then we'll work on the main bolts that are on the knuckle. So I'm gonna take a 1/2-inch wrench and we're just gonna put it on. Just like that. And we'll do the bottom one. And then we will remove this, and then we'll hang it onto our little S-hook bracket. And then the next thing we wanna do is take off these 2 bolts here to take off the rest of the caliper. Yeah, there we go. And then we'll switch to a ratchet, just try to speed this process up a little bit. Now, how easy is this gonna come off? Oh, look at that. Just like that. That is beautiful. That's gonna make our job a lot easier. Take a 10 mil. Let me take this bracket off here. And then we'll take this guy off as well, another 10 mil. This works. There we go. Okay. So I almost have to find a way to reuse this bracket and put my braided line through here. But it's kind of crimped on there. I can get a vice grip on this line here so we don't lose any fluid. So I'm gonna squeeze it like such. 12 mil, which it is. So there are 2 different spots where you can put your brake line connection. You just gotta make sure you move this plug to which side you're using. So we got one on the bottom there and then one on the side. And because the factory brake one came in from the side, we're just gonna go right there for simplicity. So we're gonna put this plug in on the bottom here, 13 mil. Okay, you don't wanna over tighten it because you do not wanna strip that, and these bolts don't feel like they're the strongest. So we're gonna put our rotor on first. And this is a multi lugged rotor, so this is probably good for Chevy, Ford, and maybe Dodge, I'm not too sure. But we'll find the holes here that line up with our lug pattern. I'm gonna take a guess right off the bat and that got it right. All right, let's grab our caliper here and see if we can't slide this on without taking it all apart. And then we'll take our provided bolts from Baer and we'll throw them right in the back here. Okay, the top is started, we'll do the bottom. I don't think this is gonna work, honestly, man. You know what? Installing this now, I think these are meant for a regular F-150, and this is a Tremor. The Tremors have different knuckles. I'm glad I didn't go through all the work of putting that braided line in. I don't think this is gonna work, you guys. My rotor is already rubbing against my dust shield, and this bottom bolt is not lining up, and it's like 1/8 of an inch out. It's not far out, but it's far enough that something's not right here. Like, unless they expect me to take the dust shield off. All right, so I was very worried there for a second. This was not going on, the caliper wasn't lining up, but I just figured out I had to take off the dust shield, and I didn't mention anything in the instructions about that, so took off the dust shield and everything looks like it's gonna fit now. So let's grab our caliper again, and then we'll get our bolts. There they are. Okay, I'm gonna get the bottom one in first because it's not going in very well and I can't really see, at least the top one I can kind of see what's going on. So I just don't think I'm gonna make this work, you guys. I don't think we have it in us to make this work. I think that these knuckles are too big. Like, you can see where I'm rubbing here. Man, this sucks. This really sucks. So I've been sitting here pondering on what I should do to get this to fit onto the knuckle, because on the knuckle there's like this little form. It must be from like when they pour these in into the molds. There's like this little lip around the whole thing. And I'm gonna get rid of that. I think I'm just gonna grind that lip off, and it should give us the distance we need to get our bolt holes all lined up from the caliper onto the knuckle. Because if you can look right here, there's a little bit of paint missing there. That's where it's hitting on the knuckle. I can choose to either grind a little bit off here or the knuckle, but because there's this little seam here, this little lip sticking out, which I'm guessing is from the mold, I'm just gonna get rid of that, and this should fit. So wish me luck. I'm gonna make sure not to put a lot of heat on it so I don't distort or warp the knuckle. I'm not sure what people generally do in this situation, but I don't see an issue in taking a little bit off the knuckle just to get this all mounted up. So we'll see what we do. I'll take a little bit off and then we'll go from there. And just so you can see it close up, I mean, I barely shaved anything off. That's kind of what we're dealing with. I basically just, like, you have this pinch weld right here that's all the way around it, and I'm guessing this is from the mold. So that's basically all I really took off, was just sort of whatever was left over from the mold, and hopefully that'll be enough to clear it. All right, so put the rotor back on, and then we'll put our knuckle back on, or at least try to. All right, so we packed it up last night. I was getting a little frustrated because nothing was really working out, and we were just running into a few issues, and it was just late. I wasn't thinking properly. So we resumed this morning. We got the passenger side all done, and I'm gonna go on the driver's side and show you guys what I did to get this all work, because man, it was not easy. There's a few things I struggled with. I feel like I shouldn't have. It might have been just the way it is sometimes. And it looks really good, guys. It looks amazing. I can't wait to get the wheel back on and see what it all looks like once it's all bolted up and completed. So we have our steel braided line that mounts to our OEM hard line here. So that was quite easy to do, pretty straightforward. And then we have obviously our caliper and our rotor. If we come around the back side here, where the knuckle is right here, and it meets the caliper, there was a little bit of meat on here, a little bit of a pinch weld, as you can call it. And what was happening was the caliper was hitting the sort of seam of this pinch weld, not allowing this bolt to line up in the caliper. So I really struggled with this decision, like if I should shave the knuckle at all. Felt like there was a little bit of meat on the knuckle to play with. I'll go over all that on the driver's side, but this is all complete, you guys. Very happy with how it's turned out. And now the driver's side should be a breeze because we know exactly what we're doing. And I expect this side to go in very easily. Then we'll move on to the rears. So we should be pros at this point. First thing we're gonna do is take off these two bolts on the caliper, and then we're gonna remove this part right here. So the next thing we're going to want to do is tackle these two big bolts right here. So we got one on the top here, and then we have one down on the bottom here. We should be able to just slide our rotor right off. All right, then we're going to take our 8mm and take off our dust shield. Next thing we want to do is take off our brake line here. So we're going to take our 13mm wrench. We're going to put it right on this guy, and we're going to crack it. So you can't expect some oil to leak out here. So we're going to have our little rubber cap ready to cap this off once we do that. Okay, so now this is all blocked off. We will work on getting this bracket off here. And then we are just going to unclip the brake line from the rest of this trunk here. Take our 10mm once again. And then pull this guy off here. Okay, so we're gonna be saving this bracket here for later, so keep that in mind. So the next thing we wanna do is take our bolt adapter and put it into our braided line here. These are all provided, obviously. And we'll put our washer on, and then we'll sleeve it into our little junction box here. And then we can take this rubber cap off that we just put on. And then before putting all of the brake lines on, let's get our rotor and caliper on so it's ready to tie in so we don't leak too much brake fluid. And there is an orientation to these rotors. You want to make sure that the lines line up, like these are kind of going in the direction of your wheel rotation when moving forward. So obviously our wheel is going to be spinning counterclockwise when we're going forward, and these lines are sort of facing counterclockwise as well. All right, let's grab our caliper. And then I'll put the bottom one in. And then we'll take our 15/16 socket and then hammer these guys home. And then we will have to torque these down to 110 feet, but we'll do that once everything's said and done. All right, so now we can work on running our steel braided brake line, replacing that OEM rubber one. And what we'll start off with is our banjo bolt that goes into the port here on the back of our caliper. Take a 12mm wrench and we'll finish off tightening it here. Now, you don't want to over tighten it because you definitely don't want to strip in it, so just snug it up nice and good. And then once we're done that, we can take off our rubber cap here and tie this guy in, and then this threads right into our junction box there. So everything's nice and tight. We're going to want to use this bracket here for our new one. So we just got to take off this little top hat pin here, whatever you want to call it. You should be able just to bang this off with a hammer or something heavy. Just like that. So then once you get this off, then this guy slides off. And then we can simply mount it onto our new box here. So then we'll take our OEM bolt. And this is the old bracket that we want to use off our OEM brake line. But this guy is kind of bent in there, like this whole thing's bent around. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut it off right here with my grinder. That way we can reuse this bracket for our sort of speed sensor, ABS wires, and anything else that might be on this sort of bracket here. And then once you have your bracket cut, you can clip it onto your knuckle. And then we are going to take our bolt and our provided cable clip here, and we are going to put it in the same hole here. Take our 10 mil. All right, so we are all done. Rotors on, calipers on, and our brake line is all ran up to our OEM connector there. And the nice thing about this kit is we don't have to compress our calipers. Everything, the brake pads are already in it. I did double check to make sure all the hardware is secured, but everything is ready to go. You just slap it in, and we're not dealing with, compressing the caliper. We will have to bleed the entire system after, and we will have to season these brakes. That just involves driving around and getting them nice and hot and cooling them down, getting them hot and cooling down to make sure that they are sort of heat sink, that they don't warp, and there's proper seasoning involved in brand new rotors and brakes. So I'll do that all on my own time. Today's video is just focusing on the install, and there is a list of sort of things you have to do to season your brakes, like go from 100 to 15 miles per hour. I'm sure every brand has a different way that they want their specific brakes seasoned. So we will put the wheel and tire on right after we torque down those big bolts in the back there. All right, so I got the truck moved up here, and we got our wheels and tires on. Everything's torqued down on the front here. Like I said, 110 foot-pounds for those big bolts holding your caliper onto the knuckle. And you can kind of see the orange glaring through the wheel there. So we'll take this outside once we're all said and done and do a nice walk around, but so far so good, guys. Looks really, really nice. Now coming to the back here, this should be quick and easy as we're just doing rotors and pads. There's no orange calipers for the back. Unfortunately, that'd be sweet if we had it sort of matching, but just rotors and pads for the back. So I'm gonna get the wheels and tire taken off, and then we'll hammer this side off. So aside from bleeding the system, this is sort of the last part of the install, and this should be very quick and very simple. So we're gonna start with our 13 mil wrench, and we're gonna hit up these two bolts on the back of our caliper. And once those bolts are off, this whole thing should just slide off just like that. And then we can go ahead and pop the brake pads out. Save those brackets just in case we need them. And then we'll need some persuasion on this guy here. Oh, there goes our caliper. Pull it right off. And then we simply slide our rotor on. And then we take our new Baer pads and we'll put them right back on the bracket here. And then we'll put our little retainers back on right in the holes here. All right, so I got a C-clamp. We're gonna take our old brake pad and we're gonna put it on top of the piston. And that's really it. But everything else is straightforward. Just two bolts, you pull your caliper off, you slap your rotor on, slap your pads back on, and it really is that simple. So I'm gonna put the tire back on, and then I'm gonna go ahead and hammer off the other side, and then we'll focus on bleeding the lines after. So I got the front taken apart again. The backs didn't need any bleeding whatsoever, probably because we didn't push those pistons in much because our old brake pads were barely worn because the truck is so new. So no air was really introduced into the system. And when you change just the calipers and the pads, typically you do not need to bleed them. But I wanted to start from the rears just in case because we had to do the fronts because we replaced the brake lines. So the backs are good. Bad example to show you guys. I've already done the passenger front, and then we'll do the driver front here. Now, one dilemma I ran into was this was supposed to be my vacuum bleeder pump to help bleed the lines out. However, I got a bunch of leaks on it. It's not working as it should. So for today, we are just gonna gravity bleed the calipers, and this will get us by for now until we take the truck in for a service. And it is a good enough method. You definitely have to keep your eye on the reservoir. You do not want that going empty when you do any sort of bleeding, but the gravity bleeding is a little bit longer and it could take more fluid because you're waiting for all those bubbles to slowly work out. So I'll go over that process, and when I take my truck in for its next service, I'll make sure they do a proper bleed on the entire system. But today, we're gonna do a gravity bleed, and that will get us by so we can drive our truck from point A to point B in the meantime. And in general, gravity bleeding is typically a safe method, and it'll get you by no problem. So this is a very simple process. We just want to put our line onto the bleeder here, and you don't need to use a line. You can just simply crack your bleeder and let it spew all over until you think there's no air coming out, and then you close it up. When you gravity feed it, basically the line will push out all the air. So it is a viable method, but we're gonna use a clear hose so we can clearly see if there's any bubbles coming out and when they stop coming out, and there's not so much guessing. So we got our hose on, and one thing you wanna keep in mind that you could have air slip between your nipple and your hose if you don't have a tight enough seal. So you wanna make sure you have a very tight seal and that you're gonna have air being introduced into your line and kind of deceiving you. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack the line. And a quarter of the turn is usually good enough, and you can see the fluid starting to fill up in the line there. And I had played with this bleeder a little bit before we started this whole process, so maybe I've got a lot of the air out at that point, but nonetheless, it's the same process. Generally, you'll just see some air bubbles kind of trickling out into the tube here. I think that's pretty good for the most part. We'll know when we do a test drive on how squishy the brakes are. So I'm gonna tighten that back up. I'm pretty happy with that. And then we want to just pull this off. You do not want to get this oil all over your stuff. And typically it's a good idea to wear gloves when working with brake fluid because it can chew through your paint. It's a pretty, I don't want to say corrosive fluid, but it has the ability to really chew out your paint and plastics and all that kind of stuff. So you really want to make sure that you're not leaking everywhere. You want to be mindful of that. That's why I use the tube to kind of keep it a little cleaner when I'm doing this. And like I said, wearing gloves, pretty important when dealing with brake fluid. I never learned my lessons. So I was pretty happy with what I saw there. I know it's not the preferred method. Like I said, when I take it into the service shop, I'll have them do a proper bleed on this, but the gravity bleed will definitely get you by if you're in a pinch, and it'll definitely get you by if you're soloing this job. If you have two people, you have someone working the brakes while cracking the bleeder, it goes a lot better, but this will do for now. So I'll put the wheel back on, take it for a test drive, and see how everything feels. As you can obviously tell from the drone footage, winter is upon us. We got a dump of snow and there's more to come. And it's unlikely this is going to go anywhere anytime soon, as the temperatures are going to stay below freezing for probably the next 2 to 3 months. Now, I was very happy with how the brakes felt, given that we just did a gravity bleed on it. Like I said, I'll be taking it into the shop to do a full bleeding on it when I go for an oil change in my next service update. But the brakes felt really good. I can't go full out on the brakes just yet until they are properly seasoned and the pads are properly bedded, and I don't want to overheat them and warp them and do any of that kind of stuff. So it's gonna take a few hundred kilometers, a few hundred miles to get these seasoned in before I can do some really hard stopping and give you guys that kind of final review on how good these brakes are. So I'll later do an updated video on the performance of the Baer brakes once they're ready to be put to the test. And I'm not too sure how easy it is to see the orange calipers behind the fuel wheels. I'll see once I start editing that. I hope it turned out really good. I hope you can see from the drone footage that the orange does show behind the wheels, but time will tell once I start the edits. And just kind of a nice close-up here on how everything looks. And these fuel wheels are quite big in the center. My last set of Vortec wheels would do a better job showing off these calipers, no doubt. So it definitely depends on what kind of wheel you do have. have, because of this sort of big fat centerpiece right here, it does hide a lot of the caliper, but you can definitely still see it peeking through there, you guys. You can see the slotted rotor there. And like I said, full review video coming up in the near future once these are prepared and ready to be put to the test. Aside from that, you guys, that's all I really have for you guys today. If you have any questions or concerns, make sure you guys comment below. And if you guys saw anything during that whole process that I did wrong that I should fix, you know, immediately, or just do different for next time, like I said earlier, please let me know, you guys. I'm always open to that sort of constructive criticism to learn and prepare better going forward. But with all that being said, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Thanks Holley Performance and Baer Brakes for giving me the opportunity to put this kit on my truck. A lot more to come, you guys. We got the Halo lift kit ready to go on the truck. Hopefully I'll be doing that video within the next week or two. Cannot wait for that to go on. It should complement the brakes and the wheels so well. So stay tuned for that, you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.